Our second speaker is Sean Shepard. Sean is a lifelong Central Indiana resident. He is a longtime presence in the information technology community and currently is an independent consultant focusing on general IT strategy and cloud migrations. He is a past state director for the Americans for Fair Taxation, ran for the United States House of Representatives in 2008, has been a policy advisor for several political candidates, and has been a sometimes guest on local political talk radio speaking about economics and tax policy, if I can say that. Please help me welcome Sean Shepard to the Spark stage.
Well, greetings, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thank you, Chris, for that wonderful introduction. I got asked to, I've got an IT background. I've been involved in a lot of political-related things, which means having to talk about economic matters a lot. So somehow I got tasked with talking about something called Austrian Economics tonight. The reason we are talking about Austrian economics, why this is even a concern, is because of some of the economic events over the last, say, decade, roughly. This whole school of thought called Austrian economics came back into the forefront. And one of the great reasons for this, great examples for some of the predictions, things that are made this way, is back in about 2007 on CNBC, there was a gentleman named Peter Schiff who was on with all the talking heads talking about economic predictions. And of course, economists make economic predictions to make stockbrokers and weathermen look good. His whole case was that we were going to have a real estate market meltdown, that real estate was overvalued, that we had a bubble economy. He literally got laughed off of CNBC by the other talking heads, which included guys like Ben Stein and some of these other people that talk about economics on there. Got laughed off and ultimately ended up being exactly right. This guy, he owns an investment company in the Northeast, and his whole approach to investing is related to his understanding and belief in what's called Austrian economics. Austrian economics basically says that the economy is more about people than it is numbers. That rather than being a lot about mathematics, we really need to understand sociology and why people make the decisions they make. You can have all these complicated mathematical formulas, which many other economic theories rely on, but just because the math adds up doesn't mean you really understand what was going on. Austrian economics got its start in the 1800s. There's a gentleman up there on the screen, Karl Menger, who wrote a book called Principles of Economics, and his whole underlying theory behind all of this was that the subjective choices of individuals, including individual knowledge, time, expectations, other subjective factors, all cause economic phenomenon, that markets should be free rather than guided. So a lot of times you see government policy and things like this that are being instituted to try and guide the economy, try and focus things in different areas. What a lot of people don't realize is sometimes this has very negative consequences. Why is it called Austrian economics? Why do we care about Austria? We really don't. It's called Austrian economics. This label, Austrian economics, really has very little to do with Austria and has more to do with these gentlemen here pictured, having lived there, studied there, died there. Anyone who's familiar with a book called The Road to Serfdom, written by a gentleman by the name of F.A. Hayek. It's popular in a lot of political circles. That's a gentleman on the right over there, F.A. Hayek. He was an Austrian economist. Some other basic concepts in Austrian economics. Capital goods are not homogeneous. A lot of our current economic theory is guided because they just want to increase production. They want to increase gross domestic product. Well, if everybody goes and makes a whole bunch of hammers and nobody makes any nails, yeah, your product may have gone up. You've made some things, but you haven't created economic value that's workable in the market. You've overproduced a resource. What is unseen is as important as what is seen. There's a great example of this called the broken window fallacy, where someone thinks that a kid throwing a rock through a window, well, that's a bad thing to do. He destroyed something, but it's going to create economic activity because someone's going to have to replace that window. You have no idea what that guy was going to do with that money if he didn't have to replace that window. That has unseen consequences. Interest rates are a key factor in things, and government policy often destroys that information. It shouldn't be artificially manipulated.